Hi, Rabbi.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi.
How's everyone?
Good.
Ricky said she might be a little bit late. She has an
Okay.
appointment, and I've got workmen coming and going in here. So I hope.
Well,
You saw my email?
I did see it. We'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just theoretically, I like the idea. Um, the question is, are we going to get anyone to go to a dot shalom?
Yeah,
Any more
right.
than they're going to get anyone from a dot shalom to come to us.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's my concern, and we do
Yeah.
get a nice crowd,
Yeah.
if not overwhelming. It's
Right. Right.
but theoretically,
Yeah. My sister-in-law asked me. I guess
Oh,
she's involved with the ritual on
yeah.
her side.
No, I mean, it's really a very nice. I think it's a great idea. And, I was thinking, is there something we can do with another congregation? Um, I think it's when we can do things together, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll ask. We'll see what everybody
Yeah.
do. Carol, since you're on the ritual,
sure.
we're going to discuss on Tuesday possible a joint Tisha B'Av service
Oh, okay.
at a Dot Shalom. Well, either a Dot Shalom or them to come to us. So I don't know what if it's.
Okay.
I think didn't we do this even during your term, Rabbi? Uh, I think in the early years when you were here, I thought we got together with a Dot Shalom for something, a service like this.
Well, we certainly got together. Well, first at a dot, we did a community-wide slichot at a
Oh,
dot shalom.
maybe it was.
Because they always do their memorial plaque dedications on Slichot. So they
Right,
had to do it in their sanctuary. But
right.
then the next year we did it very nice at Morristown Jewish Center.
Okay,
And we
right. I
had
remember that. Yep.
we had B'nai Or
Yeah.
and uh, um, what do I always forget where Rabbi Cantor Torin is. Rabbi Finkel was there at the time.
Oh,
Pinebrook.
Pinebrook.
Pine Brook and B'nai Or and Morristown and
Yeah.
us. It was really very
Right.
nice. They had all
Yeah.
the Chazanim.
Right. I remember going there to Pinebrook, I think with you. We were the only
Yeah,
people.
exactly. We tried that for Slichot, and
Yeah.
one time they came here, and it was only Rabbi Torin, Cantor Torin, and Rabbi Finkel.
Right. Right. Right.
So it was
And then
really not.
Rabbi Finkel came to our synagogue after he retired, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I remember going to a Dutch Shalom for one of Israel's birthdays.
yeah. They had a big celebration, which was very, very nice.
Right. Right.
As a community wide, I really I like being able to do everything with community, but unfortunately, for smaller things like Slichot or Tisha B'Av, people just don't go to another synagogue.
Right, right. All right, we'll find
Yeah.
out. We'll find out. Mazel tov.
Yeah, another one.
Maybe. Mazel tov.
Well, at
That's
least we'll get
fantastic.
a intermission now because everybody who could have has pretty much. In other words, but 21, and when I was a kid, that was a very big number because that's when you were old enough to vote.
Right.
It was, I don't know anybody who remembers those days, but yeah, some of you were old enough to know that you couldn't vote till you were 21. And 21
Right.
was when you came into your majority. Up to that,
Yeah.
you were considered a minor. I remember being addressed as Master Yehudi Feldman. That was the form of address that you said to a minor. Okay.
Yes.
And all that went away, but I'm just saying, I'm happy also because this baby's being named after Bremer's mother and my sister.
Right.
Nice.
Very
You
good.
got
Yeah,
a really,
another
you're
one.
a great,
Mazel
great,
tov, Yehudi.
Oh,
what'd you say, Ricky? I'm sorry.
Mazel tov. Can't
Thank you so
believe.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's really nice when um basically children get grandchildren, great grandchildren. I mean, I have great grandchildren now
Yeah, I
who
was
are
gonna say
old
you're on
enough
great
to.
grandchildren here.
I have 21 great grandchildren, and some of them are old enough to learn with. I have Right now, actually, I have 4.5 Chabrutos, four regular ones like you and I had once, and then half is I'm learning Shemot with my great grandson Yehoshua Baruch, you know, and that's like a Chabruta. I mean, it's a real. I cannot begin to say what a big high it is to learn Torah, the chain of Torah with a great grandchild, no less. Whoever thought you'd live long enough to do something like that? But again, I never thought I would live long enough to see the 250th anniversary of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very, very happy day too.
Although we're all hoping we live to see it too.
Yeah.
Well, it's only a month away, so it's no
That's
longer
true.
something so far in the future that you can't you wouldn't really want to talk about. Are you gonna what have you chosen to learn for today's parsha, Rabbi?
The menorah.
Okay, fine. I just helps me get
We haven't
organized.
talked about that in a while.
That's fine. I just like to get organized. That's get my mafarshim out.
And let me share the text. Oh, wait, no, that's not what I wanted. I mean, that is what I want, but here we go.
Hi, Rabbi Zucker.
Good
Hi, Rabbi Zucker. How you
Zucker.
doing?
Yeah,
everyone.
well, I sent you, Rabbi Papke, that Rabbi Zucker and I are jointly, among others, sponsoring Ruben Kimmelman's talk on Sunday. But I sent you the stuff there.
I thank you. I haven't had a chance to respond to you. I'm so very sorry. But I really appreciate it. I don't know that I'll be able to make it because I've got a wedding on Sunday.
Oh, it's taped. If you want, I can send you the video after it's
Yeah.
done.
Sorry, I'm trying to just get the got to move everything around
And
here.
Rabbi Zucker could do it too.
Hmm.
You got the video of it, Rabbi Zucker, the first one, right?
I haven't, I didn't download it.
Yeah,
Well,
you
you
sent
don't
me
have
the
to
first one.
download it. You just have to play it.
Yeah.
Downloading it is going to take up space. I mean, I very rarely download something unless it's.
I was teaching then, so I was not able to watch it, but
Yeah, and besides that, it's always available. You just go to the UTJ website. They got stuff available going back 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
You know?
looking at some of the things
You
they
don't have to
got, and I see
download it.
my friends and teachers.
That's right. You were Rabbi Papi of all people, probably even. I know Rabbi Dr. Kimmelman, but I don't know the people who are running this operation. The reason why I sponsored it is because I know the speaker and I know I'm going to get a good lecture. But
Mhm.
the other people involved in this, I don't know any of them. I mean, the fact that I know you, Rabbi Zucker, is a pure coincidence.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on. So,
that's worth
what
a
I thought
ask.
we would take a look at today is the menorah, or just some thoughts about the menorah, since that's what opens our parasha. And there's a lot more going on in our parasha.
Mhm.
Um, but we've looked at some of that in the past, and hopefully you'll follow along very carefully on Shabbat during the Torah reading. Um, but let's just take a look at the opening. So, would someone like to read?
I can read.
Thank
Can
you.
you make it a little bit larger, Rabbi? I see just a small portion of the page.
I joined Carol in that one. I can't see blasted thing.
Oh, no, no, here. There's more of the
Okay.
text. It's
Now
not
we're
all
getting
Okay.
finished, but yeah.
Okay. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to Aaron and say to him, when you draw up the lamp wicks toward the front of the lampstand, let the 7 lamp wicks give light." Aaron did thus toward the front of the lampstand. He drew up its lamp wicks as Hashem had commanded Moshe.
Now this
Now
was.
this was the constructed pattern of the lampstand, hammered work of gold, even up to the stem. Up to its petals it was hammered work. According to the vision that Hashem had Moshe see, thus the lampstand was made.
Okay, and as you can see, I arranged this in a funny way. What we call the chiastic structure of the first three verses, and that is pointed out by Milgram in his commentary down here.
The JPS Torah commentary, numbers 1 to 3, in the Hebrew order are an inclusion in Hasidic relationship.
Not Hasidic,
I asked.
chiastic.
Chiastic relationship, A, B, C, C, B, A, V. 4 forms its own.
That means verse 4.
Oh, verse
The V is
4
here. Yeah.
forms its own inclusion. This is how the lampstand was made. So was the lampstand made.
Yeah. One of the things that I mean, all commentators kind of do this today, but Milgram does it tremendously in Sefer Bamidbar. He points out this chiastic structure, which we've seen before, based on the Greek letter chi, which is an X, where the second part is an inversion of the first part. Well, it's a stylistic device. It may have been, I mean, I think it was a poetic device. It was probably also a way to think of, how to remember it. And so you have in the first three verses the presentation of the material in this chiastic structure. And then to some extent, I wouldn't call it a full chiastic structure, but there is an inclusio, the beginning and the end of the next verse, verse 4. Now this was the constructed pattern of the lampstand, and the end, thus the lampstand was made. So it's just there's a literary structure to this text. I think, as I've said before, what's so good about Milgram is that he points this out in a lot of what are seemingly dry texts, in legal texts, that the priestly writers, editors, were not just throwing things together, they were carefully putting it together. So that's something that Milgram points out, a little bit of the literary quality. Now we come to the question of smichut parshiot. Why are different sections of the Torah put together? So what did we finish with in last week's Parashat Naso? Anybody remember?
God speaking from above the, or God ruminating from above the.
Yes. God
living
ruminating,
ability.
God speaking, not entirely clear. Excuse me one moment. I'm just turning up the volume. And immediately preceding that, what came before Moses going into the Aron? Sorry, going into the Ohel?
Carbonate and the CM.
Yeah, all the gifts of the Nisi'im. So on
Yes,
one
that's a
hand,
good word. Yes, I like it.
so that's uh so to some extent, seeing the law for the menorah is not entirely unusual. Because we're talking about the Mishkan. We have the dedication and the gifts of all the Nisi'im, chieftains. I often translate it. Sometimes we call them princes. They're the heads of the tribes. And then, of course, we have Moshe going in and speaking to God or hearing God speak, as we discussed last week. But that didn't stop people from wondering, our Mepharshim from wondering, what is this section doing here? Because after all, where else do we have descriptions of the menorah?
We have one in Shemot, and we have still another one in Vayikra.
Yeah.
And
But-
it's actually two in Shemot because there's the command, and then there's the execution of the command. And then in Vayikra, you have, again, it looks like it's dropped out of nowhere in the beginning of chapter 24. Torah Yaroch. In other words, I think you even mentioned that when you did Parshat Damor, Rabbi Popke.
Yeah.
You know,
so it's
I would want to know why, of all things, the menorah gets mentioned in three different places, and the two places that are in Vayikra and Bamira both are completely out of nowhere. You know, the one in Shemot and Vayakhel, that Truma
That makes
Vayakhel
sense.
belongs, right?
They're talking about the building in the Mishkan. Here's how you make it, and here's how it's made, and here is it being made. So our Mefarshim tried to deal with this issue. Um, and again, why is this spread over so many different places? Why isn't it just back in Shemot where we have all the rules for the menorah? So, of course, first place we have to look is Rashi. Go ahead.
When you draw up, why is the section of the menorah juxtaposed to the section of the offerings of the chieftains? Because when Aharon saw the dedication offerings of the chieftains, he felt distressed because neither he nor his tribe was with them in the dedication. Whereupon the Blessed Holy One said to him, by your life, your part is greater than theirs, for you will kindle and set in order the lamps.
Okay, so what is Aharon upset about?
The Levites didn't give an offering.
Yeah, he and the Levites don't, give offerings. You have all these wonderful gifts of the Nisi'im, and he's not taking part of it. So God was sure to make sure. God ensured that the specific roles of Aharon uvanav in lighting the the menorah, was stated right. Yeah, they have all the gifts, but look what you have to do every day. That may not be
That
the
sounds
greatest
very
comfort.
drastic to me.
Yeah. So, but let's take a look at what a couple other people say. First of all, Bechor Shor.
When you draw up the lamps, because Scripture spoke of the erection of the Mishkan and its dedication, a constructed house is not for the Aron to enter therein until a lamp is lit and the house is perfumed.
Yeah, I just used the word. The Hebrew here is Jamaron she'adliku lo et haner, v'basmu lo et habayit. Bosem really is incense, spices. You got to turn on a light and put in the air wick, basically.
The perfuming was already done by the chieftains who brought ladies full of incense ladles full of incense, and now it speaks of the lighting of the light.
Yeah, so when among the gifts of all of the Nisi'im is the incense. So obviously they brought that in. So now it's time to also talk about lighting it. So all of this is to make the Mishkan fully prepared to bring in the Aron HaKodesh. Okay.
When you draw up, etc. Because this
Yeah, okay, so let's now going on to Rashbam.
So, well, let me just ask you a question. Yeah, I think that's good in the sense that the Torah is what is at the entrance to the Kodesh Kodashim, and the menorah is next to that. But in order for this approach to work, you have to have something that will make you think of a shulchan, no?
One would imagine so. That's, I think, to some extent, a little bit of the problems with some of these answers is that, okay, we talk about the Mizbach HaKtoret, the altar of incense, or imply it. We talk about the menorah, but what about the shulchan? That's also part of it.
Maybe we're getting an intent to emphasize the spiritual side.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And now we'll see what Rashbam
when you
has
draw
to
up,
say.
etc. Because this is a continual procedure, it is mentioned here. Even though all the work of the Mishkan had been completed, the lighting of the menorah was not completed. It is continual.
Yeah. So basically, what's the issue? Why does the description of the menorah come late?
Because it's a continual.
Yeah, it's a continual procedure. It's done every day.
So whatever
Um,
happened to Tadir B'She'eno, Tadir Kodem?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Principle in rabbinic literature. That which is frequent and that which is infrequent, the frequent comes first. And we see that. Uh, they talk about in the order of Kiddush, we do the bracha over the wine, and then we do the bracha of Kiddush. Borei Pri Agafen, and then the second paragraph, Mekadesh Shabbat or Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim. So too, we put on the talit first, and then the tefillin. The talit is worn every day. The tefillin only during weekdays. Um, Frankly, the arrangement of a traditional siddur. You have the more regular prayers, and then you have the ones for Shabbat, or the ones for Rosh Chodesh, or the Shalosh Regalim. So
But
that,
this interpretation essentially makes you have to believe the opposite. That's the reason I mentioned it.
yeah.
In other words,
Um,
here it's just the opposite. In other words, we've had a whole slew of things. We've had Nazir, we've had Birchat Kohanim, we've had Nishiyim, all from the top people. And those are like, well, Birchat Kohanim is also regular.
yeah.
There's something to think about here. The Nazir is definitely special. Okay, Birchat Kohanim is regular, and the Siyam are super special, and the because it's a one shot, never to be repeated thing, and then you have this. I don't think that I mean, in other words, this interpretation has a problem, which is that why would it be last then? The best place
Mhm.
to have put it would have been next to Birchat Kohanim.
Yeah. There are problems with all of these.
Right.
Um, but you want to see something that's a little bit even more far-fetched? We're going to turn to Ramban.
Yeah, that's the place to go.
Because he's generally, this is Ramban as opposed to Ramban as just being the practical commentator, which he sometimes is. But here, he does raise some important issues, but then how he resolves them is kind of interesting.
When you
Okay,
draw
would somebody
up,
like to go on? You've been doing a lot, Ricky. Somebody like to go on?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it unless.
Okay. Thanks, Shell.
Sure. When you draw up, why is the section of the menorah just juxtaposed to the section of the offerings of the chieftains?
I didn't include it because all he does is quote Rashi, and then he says, "This is Rashi's language from a Midrash Haggadah,"
Right.
which we saw above. But now,
But it is not clear to me why God consoled Aaron by reminding him of his function in lighting the lamps, rather than consoling him with the burning of the incense every morning and evening, with which Scripture praised him. As it is said, they shall put incense before you.
that's in the blessing at the end of Devarim.
Right.
So,
Or all the offerings and the meal offering of baked cakes and the service on Yom Kippur, which is only valid if done by him. And it is he who enters into the innermost part of the sanctuary, and he is the Holy One of Hashem, standing.
remember, that's what's written on the tzitz, on the turban, the piece that's added to the turban, Kadosh Lashem. Okay.
Standing in his temple to minister unto him and to bless in his name, and his entire tribe minister to our God.
Yeah. So, what is Ramban's problem with Rashi's commentary? I mean, again, what did Rashi say that why is our section of the menorah here?
Uh,
To console Aaron.
Yeah, to console Aaron, Aaron feels bad. Oh my God, look at all the Nasi'im did, and here I and my tribe had nothing really to do with that. And so
But
Rashi,
that's problematic on the face of it, because if he wanted to console Aaron, he should have put Birchat Kohanim there. I
right.
mean, that would be a bad consolation of the first order. So it always, these explanations have problems.
Oh yeah. And it's on the other hand, it's still a good criticism. Like God is consoling him with the Hadlakat Nerot. What about all these other things that Aharon does? in offering the sacrifices, how he stands to minister to God. This doesn't really, so the logic here of God consoling Aharon doesn't seem to work. And he goes
It
on.
doesn't.
Moreover, what reason was there for Aaron's uneasiness of mind? Was not his dedication offering greater than that of the other chieftains? For he offered up during those days all the 7 days of the initiation of the priests, many offerings.
Yeah, in other words, they had their own offerings.
Hmm.
What, was he chopped liver? Go on.
And if you reply that his offerings were obligatory and he had been commanded to bring them, and therefore he was dispirited because he did not bring a voluntary offering for the dedication of the altar as they did, even the lighting of the lamps with which he consoled Aaron was also a duty which he had been commanded.
Yeah, so like one, why dafka the lighting of the lamps when he does so many other things? And if it's even the voluntary nature of the gifts, well, this too, what consolation, because it's an obligation, it's a chovah. All of these things are chovot al ha-Kohen Gadol, on the Kohen Gadol, and on the other priests. And here's where we have very interesting explanation from Ramban. Uh, Warning ahead of time, this is not the pshat.
Okay. But the intention of this homiletic text is
Yeah, I
to,
mean sermonic text. He's saying that all this is really a teaching text.
okay, is to derive an allusion from this section to the Hanukkah dedication of lights, which occurred in the period of the Second Temple through Aaron and his sons, namely Mattith Yahu the Hasmonean, who was high priest, and his sons.
Yeah, so basically all this is meant to be an allusion to another Chanukah. Chanukah means dedication.
Mhm.
And the Chanukah was the dedication of the Hashmonaim, of the Hasmonean priests after they defeated the Greeks.
And I have found this explanation in the following text of
Migillat.
Migalat Setharim of Rabbeinu Nisim, who mentions this tradition, saying, I have seen in the Midrash when the princes of the 12 tribes brought the dedication offerings of the tribe of Levi, did not, etc. The Blessed Holy One said to Moses, Speak to Aaron and say to him, When you draw up the lamp wicks, there is another Hanukkah in which there will be lighting of the lamps. Perform through your
When I will perform.
when I will perform through your sons miracles and salvation for Israel, and a Hanukkah which will be called by their name, namely the Hanukkah of the sons of the Hasmonean. Therefore, he put this section dealing with the lighting of the lamps next to the section concerning the dedication of the altar. Thus far, Rabbi
Rabbeinu.
Rabbeinu Nisim's language.
Yeah, so he's quoting this book, which we no longer have, um, that has this tradition that basically this is to Aharon an allusion to his descendants lighting the lamps at a Chanukah in the future. Um, I I don't remember. Somebody, maybe Rabbi Zucker Yehuda, you can correct me. Were the Hasmoneans seen as descendants of Aharon? They were because they were Kohanim, but were they like
Well,
direct?
that's the whole thing
Levites.
as
Wait
far
a minute,
as
but
Rabbi
he
is concerned. The Essenes apparently did not recognize them as being the legitimate line, and they picked up and said that Jerusalem has become treif. We're going out to the desert to wait for Hashem to straighten things out.
Yeah, indeed.
but the prayer that has been accepted by the Jewish people is B'mei Matityahu Kohen Gadol Hashmonaim Banav.
Yeah, we say
So
on
I don't
right.
really think it was, in answer to Rabbi Poppy's question, what we want is not what the Essenes smoke, but what the people basically in the end accepted. And I don't know, yes, we know there were
I'm only
problems.
saying that there was a machloket.
There
Oh yeah,
was, no
certainly.
question.
And
But
I
it's been
think
settled.
well, right. Well, yes, it's been settled, except that, it is, certainly the work of Lawrence Schiffman at NYU, and I have to admit a bias here because I believe we are related. Um, my parents used to remember him visiting relatives in Wilkes-Barre, so he's one of the leading scholars on the scrolls today. And one of the things that he has really contributed is bringing the discussion of the scrolls back into the fact that they were created by a Jewish community. Um, so he does a great deal to look at the Jewish sources that we see in the writings of the community at Qumran. I mean, no problem with the word Essene. But his theory is that the people at Qumran were initially an offshoot of the Sadducees.
But that
Um,
theory is
Yeah,
no
yeah,
longer.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
of course.
that might be his and he's known for it, but in the world of scholarship, that theory has been rejected. Anyway, it doesn't pertain to what your basic issue is here, which is, yes, the Hashmonaim were thought by the Jewish people as a whole, a great majority of them as direct descendants of Aaron. That was the whole problem when Yanai made himself Melech. Remember when the people rioted and threw their
uh-huh.
rogim? What did they say? They said, Yanai Rablacha Keter, Keter what is it? Hanach Keter Kahuna Lazaro Shalaro.
Right.
Rablacha Keter Malchut.
Yeah,
Hanach. So in other words, the point being that, if you're asking for the question that Rabbi Papi asked, the answer is that in the what's the term here? The Jewish people have made their decision about this already. And anyway, how does it pertain to your basic issue, which is what's this parsha doing here?
I'm just giving the different reasons that have been offered by Rashi,
Oh yeah,
by
yeah, I understand, but
Broshur,
I mean, we're not going to.
Rashbam,
Yeah. Okay,
and
fine.
here Ramban, he's giving a totally different explanation that it's here because it's an allusion to what's going to be coming in the future. And he continues,
And I have further seen in Yelamdenu.
Yilam Denu, that's a Midrash Tanchuma.
Okay.
One of the
Earlier
midrashim.
ones.
It often begins Yilamdenu Rabbeinu, let our master teach us. So it's often called. I mean, we call it Tanchuma, but it's very often in the literature, rabbinic literature, called Yilamdenu.
Okay. And also in the Midrash Rabbah, the following text, the Blessed Holy One said to Moses, "Go and tell Aaron, fear not, you are designated for something of greater importance than this. The offerings are brought only as long as the sanctuary is in existence, but the lamps will give light in front of the menorah forever. And the blessings that I have given you with which to bless my children will never come to an end."
But there's even a problem with this promise. Go on.
Now it is obvious fact that when the sanctuary is not in existence and the offerings are not brought because of its destruction, the light of the lamps also ceases.
Yeah, in fact, the rabbis say you're not supposed to make any um, model of the menorah. Go on.
Therefore, we must say that the sages of the Midrash were alluding to the lights of the Hanukkah of the Hasmoneans, which applies even after the destruction of the sanctuary in our exile. Similarly, the priestly blessing, which is also juxtaposed to the dedication offerings of the princes, applies forever. Thus, the rabbis interpreted the proximity to the chapter of the dedication offerings of the princes of both the section before and after it in honor of Aaron, who was not included with the princes.
So there's a tremendous cleverness in Ramban, in that he takes this whole section like, oh, well, why is all this together? And he says it's really pointing forward to the future when Aharon and his sons will still have things to do. But this is why we have all of the dedication, the dedicatory offerings kind of in the middle. And it also works very nicely because, in fact, on Chanukah, what do we read? The Torah reading is the dedicatory offerings of the Nisiim. So it's a very
As I told
clever.
you, with the Sfardim, the Berch HaKohanim is read also. In other words,
Hmm.
they don't start by Yehi Kechala Oshel Hakem Tamishkan. They start with Berch HaKohanim,
Ah,
and then they go on. So they're really making it clear what the smichut is.
yeah. So it's a very, very interesting. So all of these things, what is this passage doing here? And, it's to console Moshe, but
No,
question is,
and the
what kind of
bracketing is
consolation?
definitely there. But the question, you know what, I think should be addressed also. Where do we get this idea of Chol Shadat Hoshar? I mean, he certainly is getting plenty of honor, and basically, the entire enterprise. In the 12 days in the Siyum were at it. He was at it 10 times more. Okay, but so as a practice, I mean, he was a very, very busy man. I don't know had time to watch what the Nasiim were doing. Remember, a good deal of what the Nasiim are bringing are not live animals; they're objects.
Right. They're bringing the carts. And also, I think it's, fair to say that, and this is true whenever we look at Mefarshim, as the line goes, Makashela Rashi, what's the difficulty that Rashi sees? Sometimes,
Yeah, that's the Hamalei his line.
yeah, exactly. And of course, what is great about Rashi and so many of Nechama Leibowitz's insights is they're really based on a reading of the text. What are the issues in the text? But we also have to recognize that for Mefarshim, it's also what is the issue for the Mefarshim, which may or may not have to do with the text. So I think that we see that if you take a look at the Stone Chumash from Art Scroll, the Torah, a modern commentary from HUC, well, UAHC or whatever they call it now, and the Eitz Chaim from JTS, it's not hard to discern in the commentaries or the things that are included issues that are important to their communities, which may or may not be important to another community. It's not that they aren't interesting. They were all great works, but you have to realize that they're speaking to their communities, and I think that's true for Mefarshim throughout the ages. Just as we can read Midrash and see sometimes the Midrash is trying to come up with essentially a pshat interpretation, very often they're not. And the fact that they allow for a multiplicity of interpretations, davar acher, another interpretation, shows that, they're going to be a little bit more open. Okay, Ricky, yeah, I'm just hearing you in the background. Could I mute you? Yep, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so now a more modern commentary. Milgram,
Pilgrims, yeah.
here's what he has to say.
The positioning of the lamps has already been commanded in Exodus, but the account of the construction of menorah omits this detail. Thus, there is a need for some statement that this command was fulfilled. Our passage serves this purpose, just as in Numbers is the fulfillment of Exodus. The repetition.
Yeah, so basically the completion of the gifts of all the Nisi'im, the dedication of the Mishkan, that really completes the work of the building of the Mishkan or the rules. Okay, go on.
The repetition of the command in verse 2 might be explained as a resumptive prescription necessitated by the long interval between Exodus 25 and Numbers 8.2. It would be the fulfillment version 3 that
Verse 3.
verse 3 that would account for this text not being included in one of the above mentioned menorah passages in Exodus. The fulfillment can only take place after the services in the tabernacle had begun, after Leviticus 9.3. An alternative explanation is that the text of Exodus and Leviticus was already canonized, and there was no choice but to place this passage in Numbers. See the introduction.
But that, even if you say that's so, that still doesn't mean why this passage is being put here.
Yeah.
Altogether, after it's already been mentioned in the Shemot and Vayakhel, and again in Pekudei, and then again in Amor. In other words, why now add it still another time when you're dating this whole thing to the same day?
Yeah. Well, here
First
he's
day of
going to,
Nisan of the second year.
Okay.
let's see what he says at the end here.
A question as to why this text was placed here at the head of chapter 8 may be resolved by the previous verse.
789 is the end of last week's portion when God is speaking to Moshe, Me'ala Kruvim, from above the Kruvim.
Yeah. Only when God began to speak to Moses from the Holy of Holies after the consecration of the temple did Moses receive the final instructions concerning the operation of the menorah.
Yeah, which, certainly reasonable, but I think there's still something that we recognize that, we have all this information about the menorah and we have so much of it in Exodus, but still not all of it. So we get a little bit more in
Oh, wait,
Vayikra.
but
And
if you said that means you're saying that Moses came down from the mountain, not even having been told the whole thing with the Mishkan. Well, with the menorah, it's actually said in the Vasei Kasher Atamarebo. So I find it a little difficult to think that the second year of the after we come out of Mitzrayim, Moshe is now getting information that, remember, he supposedly was up there from Shavuot all the way up to Shavuot Thomas. And yes, I know the Midrash gives him a longer time up there, but either way, bottom line is, that he's now at the point where Hashem has to. Why just specifically about the menorah? I mean, if Hashem's going to give him reminders, in other words, that just simply doesn't explain why Dafka the menorah is chosen after it's been so emphasized all along.
yeah, I mean, again, it could be literary, as he suggests, that it's this kind of resumptive repetition, which we have throughout the
Oh, he
Tanakh.
didn't say resumptive repetition. He said resumptive prescription.
Prescription,
If you would
right?
say resumptive repetition, I wouldn't feel that bad. I would say, okay, fine. Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Yeah, I think, but the reality is it's complex, and that's
Yes,
perhaps why Moshe had such problems. So let's go back to the initial command to make the menorah.
very good idea, Rabbi Papa.
This is because and as you're reading this, see if you can draw a picture of it. That's from Stephen Fine, who has an article on the menorah for Torah.com.
Okay.
Um,
You want me to?
so
Yeah.
who would like to read? Carol, would you?
You want?
Yeah, just have some background noise here. I don't know if you can
All
hear.
right. I don't mind continuing to read.
Right, go ahead, Sean.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Shell.
You are to make a lampshade of pure
Not a
gold.
lampshade.
I'm sorry, a lampstand of pure gold. Of hammered work is the lampstand to be made, its shaft and its stem, its goblets, its knobs, and its blossoms are to be from itself. 6 stems issue from its sides, 3 lamp stems from one side and 3 lamp stems from the second side, 3 almond-shaped goblets on the one stem with knobs and blossoms, and 3 almond-shaped goblets on the other stem with knobs and blossoms. Thus, for the 6 stems that issue from the lampstand.
Yeah. Now, it should also be mentioned that some of these terms are technical, and not all scholars agree on the translation necessarily.
Okay.
And the lampstand of hammered work is, probably a wooden shaft, and the gold is placed on it. And then, you have the sense that its stems, its goblets, its knobs and blossoms are to be from itself. Um, uh, let's go on.
A knob beneath 2 stems from itself, and on the lampstand proper, 4 shaped goblets with their knobs and their blossoms, a knob beneath 2 stems from itself, and a knob beneath 2 stems from itself, for the 6 stems that issue from the lampstand. Their knobs and their stems are to be from itself, all of hammered work of pure gold.
Okay, so the sense is that we not only have knobs um, on the stems, but also at the base of 2 stems.
Right. You are to make its lamps 7 of them, and all are to draw up its lamp wicks so that they light up the space across from it. And its tongues and its trays shall be of pure gold. From an ingot of pure gold they are to make it together with all the implements. Now see and make according to the building pattern which you are granted to see upon the mountain.
Okay, so we have this description, and we generally think of it in, a particular way. Now, first of all, what kind of imagery does this menorah bring to mind? What's the category of these images?
Tree-like.
Pardon me? Yeah, tree-like, exactly. The very arboreal images here. We'll come back to that. Now, of course, as we read this, it's not necessarily all that clear. There are some things that, it's what is a knob, what is an almond-shaped goblet. And we know what an almond-shaped goblet probably is, but um, the stems issue from the lampstand, but where are the cups? And so let's just take a look at Tanhuma again. And maybe we'll also take a look at a second one. But first of all, let's just look at this midrash.
Rav Levi said, a pure menorah descended from the. Why? Because the Holy One said to Moses, you are to make a lampstand of pure gold. He said to him, how shall we make? He said, make it. He said to him,
Forget, that's just the reference. It's also there in Exodus.
of hammered work is the lampstand to be made. Nevertheless, Moshe had difficulty, for when he descended, he had forgotten its construction. He went up and said, Sovereign of the world, I have forgotten it. He said to him in Exodus, now see and make it.
Yeah, so basically, the Midrash is just going, following the verses and explaining each piece as we go. Why do we have all of these statements? And first of all, he gets this image, and then he comes down and says, "Oh my God, I forgot it already." So go ahead, go on.
Thus he took a pattern of fire and showed him its construction, but it was still difficult for Moshe. The Holy One said to him, go to
Betzalel.
Betzalel. And
Betzalel. The artisan who makes the Mishkan, also the art school in Israel, Betzalel.
And they read it as B'Tselel.
Well, let's get to it.
That's the drush.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll get to.
Okay.
Go to him and he will make it. So Moshe went down to talk to Bezalel, and he made it immediately. Moshe began to wonder and say, in my case, how many times did the Holy One show it to me? Yet I had difficulty in making it. Now, without seeing it, you have made it from your own knowledge. Betzalel, were you perhaps standing in the shadow,
B in
in B, the
no
shadow,
that's a bet.
in Bet, the shadow of,
Sail is shadow like gam kielech begay itzal mavet. Even though I go into the valley of darkness, sail really means deepest darkness. It's sail means shadow.
okay, the shadow tail of God when the whole,
Ale, Bitzal ale, which is pretty
yeah,
much what the word means.
which is his name, basically, but when the Holy One showed it to me.
Yeah, in other words, Moshe had difficulty. Bezalel, not so much, because Bezalel was Bezalel. He really knew. He had this insight. But here there's the sense that when we're talking about the menorah, it's not so clear what these pictures are. We'll come to that even more, but just I'll just do this one from this is earlier on in Tanhuma. Um, and here it's really in Parshat Shmini talking about the the pure and impure foods. It's really on Sota Chaya Asher Tochlu. This is the animal from which you should eat. Shlosha Dvarim Nitkashe Moshe. In three matters, Moses had a problem. Maaseh HaMenorah, the building of the menorah, the Hayareach, probably calculating the moon, the Hashratzim, and the Shratzim, the
Creeping.
critters that crawled on the ground. Maaseh HaMenorah, Ketzad, what was difficult about the construction of the Mishkan? B'sha'ah she'ala Moshe, when the time when Moses went up, Hakadosh Baruch Hu mar'elo bahar heyach yaseh et HaMishkan. God, the Blessed Holy One, showed Moshe how the Mishkan was going to be made. Kevan sheralo ma'aseh menorah, when he showed him the construction of the menorah, nitkasha bo Moshe. Moshe had difficulty with it. Amar le Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hare ani oseh otah lefanecha. Look, God said, I'll make a model for you. I'll make it here before you. Me'asa Kadosh Baruch Hu, heralo eish levana. He showed him white fire, eish aduma, red fire, eish shchora, black fire, eish yeruka, green fire. ועשה מהן את המנורה, גביעיה, כפתוריה, ופרחיה, וששת הקנים. All of them. The cups, the petals, the flowers, the six branches. So it was not only a model, but it was a colored model. All these different fire, because of course that's how God writes. And according to tradition, the Torah was given black fire on white fire. Fascinating midrashic image. Okay, V'omerlo, and he said to him, "Aseh menorah." This is, this is Zem Maseh menorah. This is the how you make the menorah.
Okay. You don't have my Bob. I'll tell him that. Thank you.
Shakadosh Baruch Hu marelo be'etzba. God literally showed him with his finger. Very often when they say zeh,
Thank
they
you.
say, he's pointing with his finger. And by the way, the whole notion of using the pinky and Vizota Torah come from the fact that they would point at the Roman emperor when he came through the streets.
You don't feel there's any Jewish roots for that custom?
Pardon me?
You don't feel that there are any Jewish roots for that custom besides
There could very well be. There are probably a lot of different roots, for any of these customs.
It's mostly from the Sephardim, really, that they, I know there's some Ashkenazim who do it too, but they're a very small group. And the Sephardim are the ones who do it on a regular basis, especially the Western Sephardim. So I'm just curious to know,
No, I just remember this is one of those things in the seminary that I don't remember the source, but it's probably somewhere in Lieberman. Because anything having to do with Greek and Hellenistic culture, I'll have to look through Hellenism in Jewish Palestine or Greek and Jewish Palestine, see if there's a footnote there or something.
And that's right, probably I'll do it on my own. I just thought about it when you said that. That's all.
Yeah.
That it would seem to me that there would have to be at least something in a Jewish enterprise that would back that up. But again, that's not. You might be right. It might be. Listen,
Yeah.
the
Although,
Seder is definitely
there
very
always
much
seems to
influenced by.
be, there always seems to be, since the 20th century that, if we want to understand something, we have to understand the historical context, which is, of course, what we have to do. But, there's always an assumption that, this came from this came from that, and, this comparative method. And the reality is that certain actions, implements, ideas, have a place in one culture, but it's not the same thing in another culture. So anyway, so God is showing him with his finger. Va'afal pichein nitkashe. Even so, it was still difficult. Me'asa kadosh baruch hu chakaka al yado. He inscribed it on his hand. Amar lo, reid va'asem kashem shechakaktia al yadecha. Make it the way I showed it on your hand. Like, give me your pen and, wrote it out on, as people sometimes write phone numbers and things on their hands. Shneamar ur'e v'aseh. And as it said, look and do. Betav nitam in their form. And that's again from Shmot. Uminyan shechakakal yado. And how do we know that he wrote it on his hand? Shneamar v'yishlech tavnit yad. He sent him, a hand tablet. I mean, an image on the hand. Ve'in tavnit ela ma'aseh hamnorah. So basically, they're taking another verse and and all of this is again. I want to go on to some other material. It's basically even Moshe was confused, and as we come into later tradition, here's a little bit on the menorah as Sarna presents it in Exodus, where we read about the menorah.
The menorah. The second sacred item of furniture that stood in the outer sanctum was the seven-branched menorah, the lampstand. It was positioned on the south side of the tabernacle, opposite the table. A Talmudic statement has it that Moses himself found it difficult to conceptualize the object. The statement in Numbers 8:4 that God showed Moshe a heavenly prototype no doubt reinforced that idea.
And we just saw the Midrashim.
Although the instructions about the menorah are very detailed, the text is obscure on many points, as is characterized by a paucity of verbs of action, which complicates our understanding. Further, we are not told whether the lamps on the six side branches were level with that of the central shaft, and no information is forthcoming as to the material, clay or metal, from which the lamps were to be made, although it did say pure gold. So,
Well,
also,
yeah, but like I said, it was probably gold that was
you mean covered?
covered the which true for many of the other parts of the Mishkan.
Sure.
Yeah,
Also,
but the menorah does not have wood inside.
Well, that's what we imagine because it's made all of gold, but it's possible it still was because when they talk
Think
about
a little
hammered
bit
gold, they're
about
talking about it being
pure
some
gold is
pure gold sounds good, but it's going to be rather malleable.
yeah,
right,
Well, that
right.
means it's
very,
hammerable.
and it's very it's not stiff and strong.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go on.
Also, for reasons unknown, the dimensions of the lampstand are not given. Equally exceptional is the specification of the weight of the gold from which it was to be manufactured. Another unique feature is the requirement that the entire object be fashioned out of one solid block of gold. The other articles of furniture were made of wood overlaid with gold. Finally,
Pardon me.
Finally, some of the technical vocabulary is still imperfectly understood. No lampstand that incorporates all or even most of the features of the tabernacle menorah has yet been uncovered in the Near East. The famous menorah relief of the Arch of Titus cannot be used to reconstruct that of the tabernacle. It deviates in important details from the prescriptions given here in Exodus, from the rabbinic sources, and from the account of Josephus, who
Josephus.
Josephus, who was himself a priest and very likely actually saw the menorah in Herod's temple. The Roman artist may have changed some details for his own aesthetic purposes, or he may have used a model other than that of the temple. Moreover, it is likely that Herod's menorah, dating from at least 1,000 years after the one in the tabernacle, was itself the product of change and development.
Yeah, let me just say here that in Carol and Eric Meyer's Anchor Bible edition, their commentary on Haggai and Zechariah, in talking about the vision of Zechariah's menorah, they mention that it's not matching any of the models that are presented. And of course, it is meant as a visionary picture. It's not, as
It's certainly not identified with the
right,
menorah in the Mishkan. It's
right,
basically a vision of something else,
right.
and yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
that's
And also, he Asarna points out here there are a lot of affinities with Egypt. And again, apparently there is well, in the description of the menorah in the Mishkan, there are they're very similar to some of the Egyptian stuff, and also the whole arboreal imagery. But also, what's very interesting is a comment by Carol Myers, who wrote the entry in the Anchor Bible Dictionary on menorah. She also wrote a book on the menorah, which I don't have, so I haven't been able to check it out. But here's what she says. We have these words yerach, which means side, generally, or branch, and
well, yes.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that this is a Haftarah, which is really nice what you're bringing up.
Yeah, I
And
mean, this is the Haftorah, so that's why, I
Yerach
thought, ooh,
also
let me
has a
check this
sense of
out.
sensibility.
So anyway, she describes them as a hendiades. That's shnaim shehem echad. Two things that, like shamayim va'aretz, means everything. Doesn't
But what
literally,
are the two things?
yeah.
No, but what are the two things in this invited?
In here, she says that Yerech and Kaneh are endieties denoting a cylindrical form that flares outward at its lower end, thereby forming a stable base.
Mhm.
So basically, her contention, and again, I haven't fully, I mean, she's got page after page in the commentary on Zechariah, let alone her whole book. That here the branches were not necessarily part of the menorah, even though it says they were part of the menorah. Um, and so I think there's a lot more in terms of, when we talk about a menorah, what are we talking about? It's not always
Clear.
so
And you
clear.
might want to mention the arch versus the straight,
Yes.
that's in Fein's article.
Yeah.
But to this day, basically sets up that kind of menorah. I believe the one we have here in White Meadow Temple, I don't mean in the temple, I mean at the clubhouse, there's a menorah, and that also has more of the diagonal rather than
Diagonal, which,
arch.
yeah, apparently Maimonides in his commentary on the
Yeah, the
Mishnah.
Rambam's the one who's the source of that.
Yeah. And what's his name? Singer puts it in his article. I don't have a chance there's just so much we could spend, an entire class on the
No, it's wonderful what you said, Rabbi Pop.
yeah.
You were setting me up.
For what
I,
it's worth, I believe it was from the excavations in the Rova, but there was a stone with a carving on it from Jerusalem of the menorah, and that was then adopted by the Israel Exploration Society,
hmm
put on their thing. And I don't know if you can see it in the background here.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, we could think of the yeah, The
Well,
reality
the
is,
menorah was adopted
Well,
as the official symbol of the state of
it's
state of
Israel.
not
Israel
in great
on the
detail, but you
coins.
give a little bit of the complexity of it all.
Yeah, and it's important to also recognize that, we have tons. Of the menorah was so important. We look on mosaic floors, we look on lintels, there are all kinds of menorot throughout, Jewish stuff. I think again, it's
This was from the before the destruction of the, the material.
yeah. hmm
So
So that
correction
already there was
in
probably
lentils
an
on
evolution.
synagogues is later, obviously.
Yeah. So there's obviously an evolution, and that's very much what Carol Myers indicates, certainly in her commentary, that even by the time we get to even by the time we get to Kings and Chronicles, there's an evolution. And but one thing that is
You
still
know the title of that book? Because I'm looking for books on Amazon and I can't find it.
I'll tell you in a moment, but
You can
basically,
email me if you want to.
yeah, it's also it's very much a still going back to the tree imagery. It's very much like the tree of life, most likely.
Right.
And let me know it's not here. I'll give you 1 second because it was like the classic work on the not Chanukiah, on the menorah, which somehow I neglected to get. Even though I heard her speak on it many years ago, I think before I was in the seminary, because she had relatives also in Wilkes-Barre, and she came and spoke to our synagogue. I remember that. So that
You're sure it's not inside her Anchor Bible commentaries on Zohar?
oh, it is. But wait a minute, I'll get it to you in one moment.
You're typing something, Rabbi. I don't know if you know.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Forget the typing. Carol Myers. Um, the Tabernacle Menorah, American Schools of Oriental Research Dissertation Series.
And that's available to purchase or something that's in the
I don't know. I'm just reading the
You might need
So
to go
could you
to
just
a
say again the
university
Temple Menorah?
library.
yeah,
The
this is just the
Tabernacle.
title. Yeah. This is just the title of her book. Which is again the Tabernacle Menorah, American Schools of Oriental Research dissertation series. Then in BAR, Biblical Archaeology Review, was there a seven branched menorah in Solomon's Temple? And also in Harper's Bible Dictionary, she's got an article on on temples. Sorry.
That was a Freudian slip if there ever was one.
Yes.
You know,
And she also has one in Biblical
that was a
Archaeologist, The
good
Elusive
one, Reverend.
Temple. So, and then I guess this guy who wrote this article, Rabbi Singer, um, Professor Stephen Fine. What am I talking? Not Singer, Professor Stephen
Professor
Fine.
Stephen Fine. That's out on the Torah.com. No problem.
Yeah,
I got
his
that open.
article's on the Torah.com,
Yeah.
but he has a book, The Menorah from the Bible to Modern Israel, published by Harvard.
Okay.
So that's but just that it's there's so many other interesting things in this parasha. There are always a number of interesting things, but I just thought it would be fun to kind of take a look at the menorah. First of all, the little bit of smichut parshiot, which leads to some interesting and problematic and weird commentary.
Very
Not
good.
necessarily weird, but it's like,
Sure, Shalom, I have to go, but I
yeah,
think
yeah,
I
no, you got to
locate this.
go and I've got to
It's
go.
$98.
Okay. Toda rabah,
Shabbat,
everybody.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom. And mazel tov, Yehudi.
Yep.
Mazel tov.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Rob.